So I'm elated to be surrounded in good company by other writers and also scholars. And I'd like to welcome all of you to today's session discussing the real Wani, Kashmir's true hero. Now I'd like to introduce Shirish Nene, who will moderate today's event. He has served on the jury of the DC South Asian Film Festival every year since 2016. He can regularly be seen at these events and other film festivals in the larger metropolitan area. A brief training period with noted Indian dramatist Badal Sakar started a love for the visual and auditory storytelling art spanning almost 40 years and expanded from stage to large and small screens, his experience. Most recently, he and his wife have joined DC's Storytellers, a dedicated band of movie makers in the DC metro area. So thank you for Shirish for being here, and I will let you introduce our special guest today. And thank you everyone for being here and enjoy.
Thank you so much, Brittany. So
hello, Shirish.
Okay, hey Sonal. So my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sonal Chaturvedi. Apart from having a medical background, Sonal has 2 books to her credit, Corridors of Power and now The Real Wani. I'd like to start off, first of all, good morning, Sonal. I know it's way early for you, so in India. Thank you for joining us. We're delighted to discuss your book with you. Let's start off by telling the audience a little bit about what this book is. We know it's a biography, and I read through it, and I see, most biographies place the accent on the personal life of the central character. You do that. Others place the role on the character that the role the character plays in historic events. You've done both seamlessly. Not only that, this struck me as it has elements of a love story as well. Tell us a little bit about the book and the characters.
So, Shirish, first of all, thank you for welcoming me. When I started writing this book, one thing I was pretty sure of was that when somebody picks up this book, they should not have to look anywhere else for the events that were happening in Kashmir in that timeline. So I researched about Wani and found out that his story was pretty clear in my mind after talking to his friends, his colleagues, his family. But it took quite a lot of research to know the events, the timelines, and to research a bit about the effect of those events on Kashmiris. So I properly researched the events and put them in the timeline of Wani, Nazir's life. So this story is basically about Nazir, but it is also about the Kashmir's turmoil in that from 1990s to 2018, whatever the events have happened, their effect on political scenario and Kashmir's life of Kashmiris. So, and most importantly, it is about the life of the family left behind.
Yeah, very, very well done. One of the things I especially liked about the book is you have within that book, it's no frills. It's very down to earth, straight language. So you're not taking, there's an element of almost, you're reporting about what you saw with a friend, someone whom you knew. The other thing, you talked about your research. Everywhere you have copious references, so we can go back and look at all of these. But if I look at this book and compare it with your other book, Corridors of Power, that was about untold stories of women who pulled the strings of power. Sorry, Corridor Whispers, right? Who pulled the strings of power from behind the scenes. Here we have a story of a simple man who's working selflessly, front and center, to care for his family and bring peace to a strife-torn land. What I see common in both is you're shedding light on little more known aspects of strong characters. Is this something that appeals to you? What draws you to a particular subject for your work?
So I'm particularly drawn to a character by their desire to rise from where they are. So the desire may not be fulfilled, it may, but at least they have that fire within them. So the corridor whispers, the four ladies, Nalyani, Rabia Uddurani, and Qudsiya Begum and Roshanara, they all had different desires. Yeah. So be it sexual desire of Nalyani, be it power desire of Roshanara, or be it desire for love of Rabia Uddurani. But they all had that desire and they worked towards it. So I don't look towards those with a moral lens, who was right, who was wrong, but they had a desire and they tried to fulfill it with giving their all. Same is with Nazir. So he had a simple dream of becoming a Bada Sahib one day. But due to all the turmoils in his life and the changing scenario of Kashmir, he couldn't. But at the end of the day, he worked towards it, and he's the first Kashmiri to be conferred with Ashok Chakra.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. I'd like to get a view of Kashmir from someone who was with him in the army. You know, what's especially impressive is we've got the late General Rawat, who's written a foreword to this book. We've got two of his commanding officers, both colonels, who have added pieces right at the start of this thing, remembering Shahid Lance Naik Nazir Ahmed Wani. I'd like you to read to us, if you would, the last couple of paragraphs from Colonel Jamwal, starting with, as a Kashmiri, it's a difficult task to work in the army.
As a Kashmiri, it is a difficult task to work in an army and to be selfless towards the organization. When the family stays in the vicinity, their safety too is a critical concern. But Nazir balanced duty towards the nation and home beautifully. How effectively and compassionately you deal with situations in the categorization of a good or a bad officer depends a lot on the team you have around you. Nazir played a major role in the success of our team. He was frank in his opinions and was a straightforward man. He was just not a subordinate, but also a buddy to me. We as a country are blessed to have men like Nazir, whose dedication towards the service is undeterred, no matter what may come.
Thank you for reading that. Just that start of that gives us some very interesting points. Someone who lives in a strife-torn region. He makes the decision that he wants to work for the peace of the country. He joins the army, knowing full well that in doing so, his family could be in danger. Tell us a little bit about how his wife, his parents, how they reacted to this decision of Nazir's.
So very right, Shirish. So the army people who go there in Kashmir, they have a place to return. They go in that land, they serve for a certain period of time and they come back to their homes. But for Nazir, it was his home. He had to live there with his family. And when he joined Ikhwan, his parents were not very happy because of the reputation of Ikhwan due to misdoings of some Ikhwanis. And also because local Kashmiri people don't really like Ikhwanis. So they were concerned about him, but then he joined Ikhwan. Regarding army, so Mehjabina was okay with him being an Ikhwani and she was more happy him being an army person. So yes, his parents were not very happy. They were worried about his safety, but he had to join Ikhwan to safeguard his family. And in army, Mehjabina was constantly worried about his safety, but she knew that his land, his country is paramount for him. So she accepted the fact and she was happy with it.
And Mehjabina is his wife, his widow now, unfortunately.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, Todd, now that you raised the thing with Mehjabina, when you first decided to write this book, I understand your husband, when you heard about the Ashok Chitra, said, Sonal, you got to write about this person.
Yes.
You got in touch with Mehjabina.
Yes.
Tell us about how that worked. That's a huge thing for a grieving widow to come in, for you to earn her trust. Tell us how that took place.
So I contacted Mehjabina on the eve of Republic Day. The next day, she was going to get a Ashok Chakra on behalf of Nazir. After a few phone calls, she immediately agreed to that I should be writing this book. And she said that it is you who can write this and nobody else. We hadn't even met yet. So it was amazing. And I really cherish those talks. Mehjabina, I don't know how we developed that bond. I really don't know till now, but I guess my honesty towards the subject and honesty in laying everything in front of her when we met and I approached her worked for her. Till date, we are in contact and she tells me about Shahid and Athar, what are they doing, where are they? And I discuss about my 4-year-old. So we have formed a great bond.
Oh, that is so priceless. That's wonderful. So, this book is a journey. It's a journey of triumph. This young boy, he shoulders adversity, responsibility. He looks at what's happening around him. He has to be an overground worker for the Milton organization. He moves on to join the Ikhwanis. Tell us a little bit about the Ikhwanis.
So when terrorism started to creep in Kashmir,
yeah,
the small villages were infiltrated with it. And the people who were living together since ages had now different ideologies and fights started to happen. If you are inside with one organization, they will protect you from other disputes and everything. So Nazir's family was being tormented. They were being troubled by local people who would belong to different ideology. So he had to join as OGW, overground worker. But then he was really not liking the violence and unnecessary trouble that was happening and the restless environment of his peace-loving village. When Ikhwan started to come in shape, so Ikhwan was an organization who was associated with army, but was not completely a government organization. So they were people who were known as counter-terrorists. They collected information regarding the terrorist activities and they passed it on to army. So when Ikhwan came in being, Nazir joined Ikhwan, mostly because he didn't like the terrorist activities happening and he wanted to safeguard his family also. So whatever be the image of Ikhwanis amongst the Kashmiris, he had to take that step to safeguard his family.
So that, from that journey, at one point, as the Ikhwanis became disbanded, he chose to join the army.
Yes.
This is his whole journey. Tell us about your journey, about how you went about gathering material for the book, the various people you met along the way, Mahajabina, his wife, their sons, Shahid, Athar, his parents, in-laws, friends. You met a whole bunch of different people. You even met General Rawat, Colonel Jamwal, Colonel Mande. Tell us about how you went about collecting that, especially you're going to an area which is still not very stable.
Yes,
You
but I must say, I met some amazing people through this journey, and ADGPI Indian Army was really, really helpful, and they smoothened the process for me, especially Dr. Saji Ibrahim. He was an ADGPI at that time, and he streamlined the process. He guided me at every step regarding every permission. So there were a lot of permissions required to talk to even army person or Mehjabina. So he streamlined the process. He made it easy for me to follow the path. Also, I must mention that Colonel Akhil Mende and Colonel Jamwal were really, really helpful. They provided their unbiased account of Naz's journey in army and Ikhwan. So Colonel Jamwal was his senior in Ikhwan also. He saw him developing. So, and he used to say that Nazir was the most well-groomed and disciplined person amongst all the Ikhwanis that were incorporated in army. And especially his childhood friend Ayub, his Ikhwani friends Zahur, Amin, few of them were in army as well. So they all gave their unfiltered, unbiased account of Nazir's life regarding his operations, regarding his family life as well, because they lived together, they lived close by, and they celebrated every festival, every moment together. So they provided every account as if I was watching the whole scenario. And not to mention, but Mehjabina has been biggest support. So she provided me with every little detail she could regarding their personal life, the conversations that they had, and regarding, she trusted me with meeting her kids and sharing their numbers, and we met at her home and my home as well. So she has been the biggest support in this whole journey of Naz's story. General Bipin Rawat, late General Bipin Rawat, that memory is priceless for me, meeting him at Rashtrapati Bhavan, presenting him the book. He was really, really happy with the outcome. And I remember he said that these kind of stories need to be told to instill positive vibes in Kashmiri youth, as well as regarding Kashmir's image in whole India. So these stories should be told, and these stories should be told everywhere to change the perception of people.
Absolutely. That's what I found so refreshing about this book. You know, you hear things about, oh, there's all separatists, there's all violence. But here's this man, a boy actually. He starts off in the middle of this violence. He sees his brother being beaten up by the Mujahideen. He chooses what he sees as the lesser of two evils, the Ikhwanis. He goes in, even as he goes through, what he's always doing is he's looking for peace.
Yes.
And not only does he do things for his family, his neighbors, his friends, they look on him to share that, because it's almost infectious. It's contagious, the way Nazir goes about finding his neighbors, helping them. They reach out to him. There's a piece that really struck out to me where one of his friends comes to him and he says, Abdul is his younger brother, and he's suddenly become very reticent. He looks like he's going off into joining the Mujahideen, becoming another terrorist. And Nazir drops everything, goes over there, and I'm going to ask you to read to us a piece from your book. This is, let's see. This is page 131, The Guiding Light. It gives us an insight into how Nazir goes about dealing with helping his neighbors, his friends, drawing them back from this path of violence. So if you could start off on page 131, where Nazir comes in and meets Abdul. And he says, Nazir continued, "So how are studies going, Abdul?" His friend
Nazir continued, yeah. Nazir continued, "So how are studies going, Abdul? Hassan tells me that you are very good at studies." Abdul waited for a moment to reply and then said in a stern voice, "I am thinking of not pursuing education any further, Bhaijan. Now I wish to learn about Allah and follow the path which will lead to peace in our homes." It was not difficult for Nazir to understand what Abdul meant, but he decided to put across his point without using the word terrorist. "That is a good thinking, but why do you need to leave studies for it? You can serve our land better when you study and become something." Abdul had not expected Nazir to confront him in such a way. He was taken aback a little. Nazir continued, "The root word of Islam is Salima, which stands for peace, purity, submission, and obedience. So the spirit of Islam is the spirit of peace. The first verse of Quran breathes the spirit of peace. It reads, 'In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate.' It describes reconciliation as the best policy and states that God abhors any disturbance of peace." Abdul didn't say anything. He just listened. "So I don't think any path that asks for bloodshed or hurts your family is ever worth following. Even Allah will not approve of that." Abdul, being a little at ease with the discussion now, asked, "Bhaijan, what are you saying is right, but don't you think sometimes we need to take matters in our hands?" Nazir nodded. "Yes, we do, but we should always keep an eye on what is right. The path which focuses on the safety of others rather than instilling terror is the one that should always be chosen." Both remained silent for a moment. Abdul was scratching the wall as if thinking over what Nazir had just said. Nazir looked at him and continued, "Education opens up a new world to you. So my advice is don't give up on something which will benefit you, your family and society in the long run, just because you are disturbed now. Your brother has given up his dreams so that yours can flourish. Your Ammi and Abu have their hopes attached to you. Don't break their heart."
You know, this story has a happy ending. Abdul comes and he says, yeah, the magic with Nazir is he understands because he's lived through that turmoil, trying to make that decision. Tell us a little bit about how Nazir goes about while he's doing all of, fighting for the army, working with the Ikhwanis. How does he balance that with his family obligations?
So Nazir never compromised on his towards his duties and army. And he tried not to compromise his duties towards his family, but he was always a little stretched. He tried to be on time. He tried to be on the major occasions, but just like Shahid's Khatna, he promised Mehjabina, "I will be there," but he wasn't. And Mehjabina had to manage everything on her own. So he was a little stretched. But one thing he never compromised was his duties toward his job, the army. And that is what he mentions over to Mehjabina, that when she asked that you don't want Athar and Shahid to be army person. He says, "No matter how much I love my job, how much I love my country, I know they will not be able to give so much time to their families, which definitely he was missing. And that is why he didn't want them to join army. So yes, he was a little stretched, but he managed quite well. But he was not sure if his children would or if he wanted them to.
Family was paramount to him. And what really impressed me, here's this guy who comes from a pretty poor situation, right? And yet, as he goes through that, he's always setting aside some time, some money. He goes around, he buys his wife a car, her a second home in Jammu. So it's not, so there's a very pragmatic, practical side to him as well. You know, he's always taking care of his family, moving forward with balancing all of that, but he doesn't want his children to have to face that same push and pull, if you will. So he moves on. I'm going to stop a moment here because I'm seeing a number of questions that are coming up. Here's one. It's an anonymous attendee, and they're asking, so were you inspired with his life personally, or do you think society should know about these stories, or was it a combination of both?
So first of all, when I started, the idea came to me to write Nazir's book biography was because of him being conferred with Ashok Chakra, his bravery and the operation which led to this Ashok Chakra. But when I started researching about Nazir, when I connected with different people, I must say I am really, really blessed to pen down such a story. His personal experiences, his personal life is equally inspiring as his professional one. So once I started to write everything, I believe it is both his personal life, his personal journey as a person, and also his professional journey. Both are equally inspiring.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit more about his personal life. He grew up in an area that was very patriarchal. A lot of India is patriarchal. Nazir used to help his wife do housework, whatever. And when he came back, he would come back, help with housework. And his friends used to taunt him and say,
yes,
you're doing women's work. How did he react?
So I believe Nazir was a feminist, even though he might not have known the word. But all of his actions, all that he did was to empower Mehjabina, to help his mother. So, and he, even though he could not complete his education, though he wanted to, he forced Mehjabina, he pushed Mehjabina to complete her education, to have a career of her own as a teacher. He enabled her by making her learn driving, by simple things, giving her a home, buying a home in her name. So those all things helped Mehjabina. And whenever he came back from his duty for his vacations, he always used to help Mehjabina with utensils, with household work, with washing clothes. And yes, his neighbors and everybody used to taunt her, why are you doing women's work? And he used to say, that is what Mehjabina told me. He used to say that no work is women's work. This household belongs to both of us. So if she is taking care of everything, what is the problem if I'm helping her a bit? So this is my job also. There's nothing to be ashamed of. You should be ashamed if you are not helping the women in home and not the other way around.
Yeah. So he strikes me as someone who's very confident with who he is. Those taunts don't bother him. he's also able to acknowledge the fact that Mahajabina is really running the house. And one
Yes.
strikes me, he says, "Tum is ghar ki mard ho." For those in our audience who don't understand the Hindi, it's like, you're the man of the house. That says two things to me. One, that it reflects the opinions, that there is the concept of the man of the house.
Yes.
And at the same time, what that tells me is he's comfortable enough with himself to say, hey, you are taking on that responsibility and you're doing a lot more than I am for the house, which is amazing. And that started off very early from what I understand, Sonal. Like when he was a little boy, he'd come from school. Tell us about what he does. He comes from school where he sees his mother chopping vegetables or doing what? Well,
yes, so he used to get up earlier than his brothers and his father, and he used to wash the utensils so that his mother doesn't have to, because he understood that she has a lot of work in a whole day, and he used to help her in whatever and whichever way he could. From school, when he came back from school, he used to help her in chopping vegetables, preparing food, or taking care of the kids, his brothers. So, and with Mehjabina, so that was, I think, he had that that notion pretty early that women run the household and I should help them. They are equal partners. So with Mehjabina also regarding education or taking care of kids or taking care of Mehjabina for that matter, he used to give it all. So I believe that is what makes this story also special, because it isn't just not about the bravery, it is also about his sensitivity towards women and other people.
Absolutely. So this brave young man, he's focused. The family obviously means a lot to him. He sees injustice where it is in terms of this inequity between how women are treated. He doesn't accept that. He moves forward in dealing with that. In moving into his life in the army, that same characteristic. Tell us about how he went about with the earning trust with the small kids. There's a little something he did. He's heading out and he buys some candy, some chocolates. And his friend asks him, so is this for your son? What happened then?
Yes. So whenever they used to go on routine patrolling, he always used to take the packets of chocolate. And one day his friend asked, these are for Athar and Shahid? He said, no, these are for the kids. We'll meet in the way. Because he had that clarity in mind that if the kids are happy, if the kids will trust them, their parents will trust them, their perception towards army would change. So he had that clarity in his mind. He used to distribute chocolates to kids whenever they went for routine patrolling, they met kids in way, or at homes where they went for routine question answering. So their parents would see and they would have a little positive approach towards the army people. And this became a routine practice then. You always used to take some chocolates and distribute in the kids. If the kids are happy, parents are happy. So
absolutely. And as you said, that became a standard practice with that whole battalion, with the army. They helped develop that relation. There was another time when the floods happened in Jammu.
Yes.
Right? And Nazir's commanding officer sends him to make an announcement over the masjid, loudspeaker, to go out. But what happens? Tell us about the action and what happened thereafter, because there's a lot of misinformation that put out after that saying, oh, well, what did the army do? They didn't do anything.
Yes. So they made announcements from the local masjids to get out of the homes, to go to a safer place, to go to army camps. But people refused. They said that you are talking nonsense. We will not get out of our homes. This is our home. We'll live here. There will be no floods. But when time was passing and they have then finally had to go into the houses and say, we'll we'll beat you with sticks if you don't come out. They had to do that because nobody was coming out, and they had to save the lives. And later, those people thanked Nazir and Colonel Jamwal Sheem and everybody who was saving their lives. They thanked them that yes, we were wrong, and you have saved our lives.
So you have this understanding that Nazir has, that part of his job, just as he helps his friends, even with the army, you continue with that. Whether it's building the relationships with the little children, you come in, these guys work, what was it? 2 days, almost 2 days at a stretch, getting people out of the flood zone.
Yes.
They hadn't eaten for more than 16 hours, but they come in, and that started building a change, if you will, between the perceptions, the relationships between the army and the local people. What do you see as the path forward? Now, Nazir's message was one of focus on peace, focus on advancement. He didn't shy away from violence when he had to, but he moved forward. How do you see, when you visited Kashmir and Jammu and Mehjabina, what do you see with the people you met? We hear a lot in the newspapers, but I'm much more interested in what you saw personally.
So, first of all, everybody was quite welcoming when I reached there, when I reached Kashmir. Jammu is a peaceful area, so it was expected of.
Right.
But Kashmir is a little troubled area, but everybody was so welcoming. Everybody supported me in whatever way they could. And Nazir's friends and family had nothing but gratitude towards army and his colleagues. They were overwhelmed with the response they were getting, with the love they were getting. So yes, people have different opinions, but mostly whosoever I met, they were quite welcoming, and they reflected the ideology of Nazir. So the person who really goes into the war knows the true value of peace. Nazir was such a soul. He was pure, and he always saw the positive in everything. He tried to look on the brighter side. And so that was reflected in his family and his friends and everybody I met.
So now, as you've described that to us, let's put some pictures around those words. You had some great photographs, and if I may, I'm going to share some of those pictures, and let's see if we can. Tell me if you can see my screen here.
Yes, I can.
Okay. And let's see as the presentation comes up. Just a moment. Okay. Technology never fails to surprise us. Oh. Okay. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, I can.
And you see the presentation? Or not yet?
No.
Okay. Let's try this. Oop. Okay, I want to try this another way here. Bear with me, guys. My apologies. Okay. Let's get this out of the way. And okay. So we have this story of Nazir, a hero remembered. Let's take a look at, tell us about the pictures over here.
So the first one is a holy celebration in army camp. They used to play holy, they play holy amongst themselves. So that is the picture. Second one is when Nazir was part of Indian Army. After Ikwan, after a few years, then he got this picture clicked. Of course, it is a matter of pride for him, was a matter of pride for him and his family. Third one is when
There's
they...
the Sena medals there, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, the third one?
Third one was when they went to patrolling and looking out the area for days together. So third one is from that. One of his friends clicked it.
So here we see Nazir, the soldier. And here, just a couple of things in everyday Kashmir, a son of Kashmir.
Yes. So Nazir and family went to holiday near Kashmir, near Punjab. And this is from that. They fondly remember this holiday time because Mehjabina, there was a very pretty suit which Mehjabina wanted to buy. And it was little costly for them. So Nazir brought that.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead, because that's another great story that gives us a little bit of insight into Nazir. She says something about, okay, she loved the blue color of the suit. She bought the suit and says, I'll wear this for Eid. I'll wear it for a special occasion. And what does Nazir say then? What does he reply to her?
So he said, every occasion is special when we are together. This is a special occasion. Wear it.
Yeah, that's a recurring theme. He cherished every moment of his life. And tell us something about what we see out here with Nazir, the father and husband.
Yeah, so he's with his kids, Athar and Shahid. And in the first picture, he was still with Ikhwan. And he came back home from an operation. And he just used to love the kids. Whenever he got time, he used to play with them. He tried to compensate whatever time he wasn't there. And he used to watch, so Mehjabina told me that he loved to watch Tom and Jerry cartoons with them. The only two things he watched on television or otherwise were either about the weapons and how to operate them or Tom and Jerry. He loved cartoon movies and he used to watch them for hours with the kids. He loved the kids, yeah.
And then sadly, there came a time when they had to say farewell to him. Tell us about these pictures.
Yes. So first one is Mehjabina paying her respects to Nazir. And the last one is the grave of Nazir. So in Kashmir. So I must, the one thing that struck me and is still with me, the words written on the epitaph of Nazir.
Would you read those to us?
Sure. So, just a sec.
Yep.
आए थे हम मिस्र बुलबुल सैरे गुलशन कर चले, ले लो माली बाग अपना, हम तो अपने घर चले. O gardener, the nightingale came and leisured in your garden. Care for it, oh, your garden is yours now. I'm going to my resting place. So
Beautiful.
that really, really got me in tears.
And not only you, all the people. This tell us about these pictures.
So in the first one, Mehjabina is receiving the Ashok Chakra from President Ramnath Kovind on behalf of Nazir. And in second one, I was in Rashtrapati Bhavan and I presented my book to late General Bipin Rawat sir. He was quite impressed with the outcome. And he was mostly worried about safety of Mehjabina and the family of Nazir. So he discussed few things about the situation and what could be done.
Now, when I was asking you about the pictures, one of the things that came up in our discussion is there are no current pictures of Nazir's sons, his family, and that is for security reasons.
Yes.
Tell us what they have to deal with.
Mostly that is, I believe, my moral duty to not to put his kid's picture in public domain. In regarding the book also, I tried not to incorporate anything that would give away, be it their home's picture or the kids. So they might get troubled with because Nazir was a decorated army soldier.
Right. So they might take,
Yeah.
terrorists might take revenge on him. So it's still a very unstable area for them, but they're still dealing with this very bravely. And now, has Shahid gone on to the medical school now? Shahid?
Sorry?
So Shahid,
Shahid. No,
was
he's
going
prepared
to be an engineer. This one was
yeah.
going to be, and they had to deal with, as he's taking the board exams, they learn of their father's death.
Yes.
He continues anyway. So he had some problems with one particular exam, but he went on. What happened to the elder one? Did he go to engineering school? And
yes, he's enrolled in engineering college now and he's pursuing. So, and regarding Shahid, due to COVID, the exams didn't happen regarding medical entrance, but he's giving them now. So hopefully he'll get through and complete his father's dream.
Wonderful. We talked about this wonderful man. Is there something, here's a question from Brittany. Is there anything you learned about your main character that surprised you? And how did you integrate that into this book? Great question, Brittany.
Honestly, there was, so as I told, when I started writing this book, all I knew was his bravery, tales of bravery, his journey of army and everything. But there were many aspects of his life that surprised me, to be honest. One, we had already discussed that the way he helped Mehjabina, the way he empowered her, and so it is all because of that she is handling everything so nicely till date. After he is gone, she's handling social responsibilities, family responsibilities, everything, because he empowered her. And the second aspect is his nature of helping everybody, going out of the way and helping others. So he was also stretched regarding finances, but whenever and wherever anybody would ask for money, he couldn't refuse. And there's one incident when he tells Colonel Jamwal that this and this person has borrowed money from me and he's not returning it back. What should I do? So Colonel Jamwal says, why do you give? You knew that the money wouldn't come back. Why you give? So go and ask. And after a few days, Colonel Jamwal gets to know from Amin that Nazir has lended more money to the same person. And when he asks him, Yaar, why did you lend the money again? He says, Koi baat nahi, sir, no worries. He needed money more than me. And he smiles. So he goes out of the way for everybody. And everybody had the same story about him. Everybody told that, yes, that was him. That was him.
So if I could paraphrase, so the surprising thing is you meet this man, he's been in a militant, he's lived through violence all his life, he's joined the army, a very rough, violent life. But the surprising thing that I'm hearing here is he never loses his faith in people. Someone borrows money from him, refuses to, doesn't give it back. So months later, the guy's in trouble, and Nazir's the first one to go out and help him.
Yes.
Incredible.
He doesn't change with all the incidents happening around him, everything, he doesn't change. So that is the most inspiring thing. Many of us would, if we would be in such a situation, we might change for worse maybe, or we might start to hate the system or the things that are causing trouble. But he doesn't, he just doesn't. He knows that the change begins from him, and he wants to be the person that his kids look up to, his neighbors, his family looks up to. They cite him as an example of what a person should be.
So, that brings us to an interesting point. As we read any book, we tend to see, how does this apply to me? What can I learn? What can I take away from this? What do you think the message of this book is as it applies to our readers? What would you want your readers to say? How Nazir's life, how does it apply to us? What can we learn from it?
I believe his story tells us that whatever the situation may be, howsoever bad the circumstances are, it is up to us how we look at them and how we let the circumstances change us for better or for worse. So Nazir changed for better. Even he wanted peace. He always, in everything he mentioned that peace and education is the way forward. He wanted his children to be educated. He wanted Mehjabina to be a teacher so that she could educate the coming generations and change the perception. So the takeaway, I believe, is that no matter how worse the situations are, it is up to us how we take them and how we sail through them and become a better person.
Now, a lot of that, his message is reflected, like we said before, in the eulogies that his colleagues, his superiors left for him. The other part that I found incredibly touching is how the book is sandwiched between those at the start of the book and letters that his wife and sons wrote. So what I'm going to do, instead of going through all of those, I'm going to ask you to read Mehjabina's letter to him after he passed away. And then we'll take some time to go over some of the comments that our audience has been sharing with us in the chat.
Sure. It has been few months since you left, and all the continuing responsibilities and the demands of the day have made me stronger. It seems that life is normal, certainly fully functional. But when I sit down after a whole day's work, when I am alone, it pains inside. The vacuum that you have left in my life will never be filled, ever. And yet, the ways in which you continue to be by my side are innumerable. You made everything fall into place way before you left. Now, when I look back, it seems that you were in a hurry to fix everything, to make life easy for me. Seems that somehow you knew the house, the education of our kids, the paddy fields. I have no regrets. You gave your life for the cause that you lived for. And I hope you know how much respect and love you have earned for that. But then again, the personal loss can never be recovered. I am still trying to make peace with the fact that you, whom I confided in, who were my sounding board, will not be coming back. That now our worrying over the children will be mine, and laughing about little things together will now be a memory. There are so many unanticipated gaps in my life now. But then you always said, "Aap mere ghar ki mard ho." You are the man at home. Athar and Shahid miss you a lot. I need to be strong through their grief. At times I find myself numb, empty, but I keep doing things that need to be done. You will always remain in my heart as a joyful, loving, caring husband and father that you were. The memories will always make me smile. I will always remember the blessing that you were in my life, and it will be impossible to forget the loss. Yours, Maha.
Lovely, lovely. I'm going to share with us some of the feedback from our audience. Smita says, "I must say, this is a very well-written book. Congrats, Sonal. It's filled with human emotions."
Thank you, Smita.
And here we've got a question from another attendee asking, can we expect a film based on Nazir's life? Has anyone approached you with that as yet?
Yes, so a few people have approached me regarding the book, and we are in talks with people. My husband has written, he's a screenwriter, so he has written the script of Nazir's life, and hopefully we'll finalize on something pretty soon in coming months.
We look forward to that. Nima says, "So good to see a man who truly loves his wife and understands the work wives do, and to understand that the housework is the work of both husband and wife."
Yes.
She also says, "Taking on the responsibility of being a Kashmiri citizen, he gave the ultimate sacrifice of his life for fighting for peace. Namaste and thank you." Indeed, indeed. Remarkable man. And with that, let me take a moment to thank you for bringing this story to us. I hope our audience, if you click on the link in the schedule, there's a way to purchase the book. I bought it from Amazon and I'm absolutely glad I did. I hope many of you will read the book, get a different perspective from what we hear of all the negativity surrounding Kashmir in the news. Here's a story of a real hero. Sonal, thank you so much for bringing it to us.
Thank you, Shirish, for this discussion and the elaborate efforts.
We look forward to your next book. Any sneak preview of what that's going to be?
So yes, I have started working on a fiction novel. It is still in initial stages, but it revolves around hunger. So hopefully I'll be able to talk about it soon.
Well, can't wait to see what that is. Thank you, Sonal. Brittany, thank you. And I'm back to you.
Yes, Sonal, thank you for sharing the insight of your work and your words and your heart with us. And thank you, Shirish, for moderating a lovely conversation. Please keep tuning in to the DC South Asian Literary Festival, which will extend into the weekend. And we look forward to seeing you in more of our sessions. Thank you all.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Shirish.
Thank you. And thank you, Snigdha, for bringing this together and Manoj and Geeta Singh.